Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, as you are all very well aware, today over there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, marked the beginning of the DNC. And of course, the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the Salivating Mainstream Media were there in full force. And there was a lot of booing. There was a lot of heckling. In fact, there were some within the rank and file of the Lion Branch Trumpidians who were sitting there saying that all of a sudden that there was more booing for Hillary Rotten Clinton than there was at any point in the RNC. But you know what? That shows a glaring double standard. And the glaring double standard is this, that they are allowing there to be booing at the RNC, that they're not finding any shame in that they want to just go ahead and try and foist this false narrative, this Lion Branch Trumpidian narrative that Ted Cruz, the Texas senator and former presidential candidate, was somehow deserving of the booing that he got, that this was somehow just par for the course in this 2016 presidential election cycle. And that is what we have to focus on with respect to the 2016 presidential election cycle. This is the election of double standards. I used to call it the election of betrayal, but it goes beyond that. It goes much deeper than that, particularly with the way that the Lion Branch Trumpidians are trying to paint a narrative that has no relation to reality whatsoever. It's not factually based. It's not based in any form of reality, and it is just pitting the base of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, against one another so that we are hopelessly divided heading into the general election cycle, which is slated for this November. And one of the things that they tried to say, because there was this WikiLeaks just document dump with respect to the DNC emails, because they had hacked their servers, that they tried to claim that Cruz had reached out to the DNC to help fund his unbinding of the delegates movement in Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, the only sites that I can find that had any reference to this were the Daily Caller, the Marshall Report, which is just as good as Printly, maybe Gateway Pundit, again, another pro-Trump National Enquirer type Pravda piece on the internet. So none of these things had any relation to reality. Now, yes, the Ruskies did hack the Democrats' party's servers, and they had spilt the entire contents of their emails to the public. But it turns out that there are ties to Donaldoff, the Don Trumpolini himself, with respect to these Russian hackers. Now, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. We already know that Donald Trump has this great, big connection with Putin. He loves and adores Putin, and Paul Manafort is clearly the chief flatulence himself, with his former connections with the Russian strongman there in Putin. He's just happy about this. So could it be that maybe the plant that we should have been looking for with respect to Donald Trump is not so much Hillary Rotten Clinton, even though, yes, he did have connections with her. Yes, he has had a very long-standing friendship with her, a very cordial relationship with her husband, a man who is equally as unfaithful to his wife, except that Trump's been divorced 3 times. It goes to show, or 2 times rather, it goes to show that maybe he was put in there by Putin to destabilize things. Now, you see, I could go off on that a lot like Alex Jones goes off on a bunch of nonsense. Is it based in reality? No. Would anyone accept it? No. Again, because there's a glaring, open and obvious, hostile double standard that has become the hallmark of the 2016 presidential election cycle. Jeremy, I'm sure you've noticed this. All of a sudden, the National Enquirer is considered to be honest reporting, decent reporting. It's nuts.
I don't understand how anybody in their right, rational, logical mind can believe any of this garbage. I don't. See, it's the Democrats are playing both sides of the coin. Trump is playing both sides of the coin. They're both parties are playing both sides of the coin, not only against each other to a little bit, but to a larger degree against we the people. And they always have this mantra, it seems, that do as I say, not as I do. It's okay for the leftists to sit there and cry, this is a hate crime. This is hate speech. This is this. You're not being tolerant. Blah, 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 blah. But yet, the first time that somebody who has never had any run-ins with the law, the first time a person who understands the Constitution, knows how to exercise their rights legitimately under the Constitution, the first time they say something that nobody agrees with or that the opposition disagrees with, they're hate mongers, they're xenophobes, they're intolerant, they're this, they're that. But yet we see all the time Donald Trump and the other leftists, the Fabians, the Fabian lights, always attacking individuals. They, especially with the lying branch Trumpidians, they can't attack the argument that's made against them. They have to resort to ad hominem attacks and attack the person making the argument because they can't refute what's being said. But yet, if you don't accept their rationale reasoning, then you don't fit their standard.
And there's something about that that needs to be explored in greater detail, because one of the things that we've noticed is there's now people like Nate Silver who's come out and said that if the election were held today, Donald J. Trump would win. Well, of course, the election's not going to be held today, Mr. Silver. Why do we even go about these hypotheticals that have no connotation or connection with reality? Again, this is to try and stoke the flames for those that are pushing for a tyranny of false unity. But if you want to hear something that's really laughable, something that really goes out of the fray, it's like stepping out on a limb and dangling there like a prima donna ballerina, huh? It's this. It's that Rinse and Repeatus went in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pamblon School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and said the following, that the DNC delegates should vote their conscience. Now, wait a minute. Why was it that Texas Senator Ted Cruz was booed off the stage for making that remark? And yet, Rinse and Repeatus is saying that you should do this with the Democrat delegates. You know what this ties into? It's like how he said that nobody can judge Donald Trump. No Christian can judge Donald Trump for his past infidelities, but then he turned right around and did it to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, don't get me wrong. We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have no love for Madam Clinton. We have no love for the target of Serbian snipers. Remember, back when she was there with the helicopter? We don't, because she is a pathological liar. We know that she does not stand in line with the Constitution. We know for certain, without any benefit of the doubt there, without any shadow of the doubt, that she is a frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist who is hell-bent on destroying the United States of America. But we know also that what Rinse and Repeatus is doing is he is allowing the vile attacks to go forth against Ted Cruz. And now they're trying to claim that he's not even welcome to GOP events. That too is a lie. This dishonesty, this double standard, that is just blatant. We're used to it from the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. That's what they always do. But from our own? Yes, we know the detente wing, what is known in the regular vernacular as the establishment of the Gutless Opposition Party, or GOP, has never really stood for conservative values and have always kind of wanted to push them out. But this is taking it to ridiculous levels. This is taking it beyond the scope of all belief and all reason.
Joseph Goebbels would be so proud.
Oh,
He would be so proud. I mean, look at all the labeling that's going on. And the other part of propaganda is using the enemy's message or agenda against them to destroy them. Well, isn't that what the ACLU and its founders, Crystal Eastman and Roger Nash Baldwin, said the whole auspice of the ACLU's existence was to use the Constitution to destroy the Constitution? It's the same thing. The ACLU may as well rename themselves the RNC.
Because they're going down the same path.
It's really that simple. The ACLU and the RNC should just, have a corporate merger and be done with it. That way we know where everybody stands, and we know which individuals to, for the lack of a better term, remove from their so-called positions of authority. Because that's what it's going to come down to. When these individuals want to keep stepping on and trampling the rights of the sovereign citizens, they are illegitimate, period. They have no authority to exist in any way, shape, or form. That's how it works. And if people don't like that, too bad. I really don't care, because it's way past the time for people to start barking and continuing to bark. Now it's time to start fighting. And these individuals have come up onto our porch, and wouldn't you look there, Randy, lo and behold, the latch on the leash and the chains of the dogs that are going to be loosed on these individuals doesn't exist anymore.
And they brought it on themselves. There's no other way to say that they, other than they have brought this upon themselves. And we have warned time and again, ever since we going back to our first episode, which aired on September 11th of 2015, we have warned about the dangers of this. It's the same type of warning that George Washington gave in his farewell address about factionalization and just how dangerous it is. But the Lion Branch Trumpidians don't care. They sit there and they say that if we don't just grovel at the feet of the mafioso quaffioso, the quaff commando, the quaff waffler himself, then we are somehow helping Hillary Rotten Clinton. They are forcing a false dichotomy, a false narrative, a false perception on not only us, but the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And what they're trying to say is that there is only Hillary and there's only Donald Trump. And then if we don't just coalesce around him, even though we have been stalwart in our position saying that he is unacceptable, that he does not meet any of our values, that he doesn't stand for any of the criteria that we hold as important as constitutional compositionists, they want us to say that it's our fault, that we just need to hang our heads, put a clothespin upon our nose so that we can't smell the excrement aroma that's just wafting off of the quaff waffler's unkempt little toupee, and vote for it. Now, why? Why is it? Why is it that we are always expected to sell out our values? Why is it that we are always expected to bow down at the feet of the unworthy? Why? That's not necessary. That's not who we are. That's selling out. That is being a charlatan and a hypocrite. And clearly, by the words, deeds, and actions of Rinse and Repeatus, we see that the gutless opposition party is chock full of hypocrites. Look at Rick Perry. Rick Perry said that Donaldolph Julius Caesar Trumpolini was not qualified to be president, that he was not stable enough, mentally speaking, to be president. And then you also have Hamburger Christie sitting there saying that Donald Trump is a thug. But then he turns around and he says that Cruz was very selfish, was only thinking of himself. I have to love what one of Cruz's campaign people came out and said in response to that. Well, Christie sold his political testicles in a box a long time ago.
Here's a question, Randy, and you and I have kicked this question around, and we've pretty much beaten it to death, but let's resurrect it. It's a two-part question. Where is it written, and by whom is it written, that the ultimate wielders of sovereignty, exercising their right to vote, must adhere to one or the other of the two candidates that this dog and pony show has bred into existence? Why are what law? Can anybody tell me what law? Where is it written in the Constitution that we're beholden to support and endorse or even vote for one candidate over the other, or vice versa?
You're not going to find that anywhere because it's not on any legal book. It's not a part of the foundation of this country. In fact, the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, or any political party, that didn't exist going back to the inception of our country 235 years ago. That didn't exist. And that was what Washington was trying to warn us about. He said specifically in his farewell address that if we broke into factions, competing factions, we would lose sight of what was truly important, what was really significant and made this country what it needed to be, and that is the Constitution. We clearly have lost sight of the Constitution. We have allowed ourselves to be duped. By what? Charlatans, hucksters, fraudsters, con artists, snake oil salesmen, and for what? It hasn't brought us together. It hasn't done anything. And yes, while Nate Silver might think that Trump would win if the election were to be held today, you and I both know. And I believe that the vast majority of our cherished listening passengers and audience members also know full well that Trump is going to implode. He is.
He's already imploding.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. As brash and bold as he is, him kicking his heels, digging his heels in, has done nothing but spark the fuse of a wildfire that's going to spread uncontrollably. His fuse is already lit. It's just a matter of time before it goes bang. That's the problem. This is what people don't understand. And it's like I mentioned before, he's a monkey with a live hand grenade. Everybody is more worried about protecting him. It's not supporting him. This isn't genuine support. This is not the type of support that our founding fathers envisioned for this country, for any candidate. This is not support. This is protectionism. It's populism, protectionism, indoctrination, and political correctness, moral relativism, and revisionist history all rolled into one. They don't really care about Trump. They really don't want to support. They want to protect him. Because by protecting him, they're protecting their own false sense of security because it makes them feel good. Instead of embracing the truth and reality about it, they're going to do everything they can to stave that off because they do not have the wherewithal, the conscience, or the fortitude to own up to their illogical reasoning.
And of course, there is a major failing to all of this, Jeremy. The major failing is it's the RNC is trying to pit itself into such a position that it can challenge conservatism forever. It wants to eradicate it, to erase it from the Republican Party. And you could see that they supported this when Trump went in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and proclaimed that it's the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party. What does that even mean? Why has nobody really dug into that? What does that even truly, honestly mean? And that's the thing. The graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, they sure as hell aren't going to dig into that. They don't want to look into that because they don't want the people to be questioning this propagandistic Fabian socialist agenda that they have been foisting upon us ever since the rise of William Randolph Hearst and yellow journalism with his newspaper conglomerate at the close of the 19th century and the open of the 20th century. So here we are. We're facing this dichotomy. And we have a party that's supposed to represent us telling us that, no, it doesn't even want to represent us, but then we just need to shut up and get into line. And they act as though those of us who are opposed to the mafioso quafioso are somehow part of the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, when in fact nothing, absolutely nothing, could be further from the truth. So if we take a step back and look at this logically and in an objective fashion, we'll see that it's very disingenuous the way that people that were once thought to be true die-in-the-wool conservatives, I'm speaking of people like Rush Limbaugh, who sits there and speaks into his tinfoil-covered golden microphone and says that anyone who doesn't want to vote for Trump is just not a true conservative. Hey, Lush, you don't get to define conservatism. You don't get to define that term. You don't get to redefine it. What you get to do is sit there and watch your ratings tank, because believe me, to use Trump's little favorite thug line there, believe me, your ratings are going to get real smally, real bigly soon.
See, the equivalent to that, I have an example for when Rush says nonsensical drivel like that. It's the equivalency of if Honey Boo Boo's parents said, well, anything that's not, fried in grease and lard and deep fried and covered in fat and sugar isn't healthy for you. It's the same thing. The exact same thing. That makes absolutely no sense for the whole subject and issue of those statements. They're completely contradictory of each other by rational thought and logic, by proven facts.
But we are in an era of post-facts. We're in an era of post-facts. Yeah, that's what they're pushing down us.
And Rush wants to say that if you don't vote for Trump, then you're not a true conservative. Could somebody anywhere explain to me how long it's been since Lush Bimbo has ever embraced or even touted any principles revolving or centering on conservatism? When was the last time?
I'm going to say 2000.
I can't remember, because you know what? I remember watching him on TV as a kid. My dad always watched him. I remember listening to him on the radio. We're out in the wood shop or doing whatever the case is, on our way to jobs, doing this, doing that, working. And Rush was always on the radio. And I never really paid attention to him because and when I was a kid, it bored me. It really did. And if it didn't bore me, it's two things. One, I would be either extremely exceptional and brilliant with understanding politics, which I've never claimed to be, or I would have been a complete and utter, freak, for lack of a better term. So I never got into it. But when I started getting older and I started seeing how things happened with the Clinton era and his tyrannical regime, so on and so forth, Trump always spoke against it. And I remember Trump saying, Rush. I remember Rush saying, Rush, Trump, what's the difference?
At this point,
what difference does it make? I remember him saying the same things about coalescing behind Bob Dole. And then he did it again with George W. Bush. Then again with McCain. Then with Romney. More so with McCain, and then even more so with Romney. And now he's completely fallen off of his rocker, busted his cochlear implants, because he is not listening to what people have been telling him.
And it's because he's been in it for too long, perhaps. Or it's just because he's set in his ways and he doesn't want to think things through. But he honestly tapped into the anger. Because, you and I have said on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that there is this monumental type of anger, this raw emotionalism, this blind rage and fury that has swept through the electorate from coast to coast and border to border. And he's tapped into that, and it's as though he's trying to say that this is what Trump represents. Trump doesn't represent that. Trump is the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives. And the reason that I can say that with as much confidence as I do, sitting here, speaking into this microphone, conveying this message unto you, is because he is not conservative. I've seen a Trump video go out there and say that, well, you can't use what Trump said 2 years ago. You can't use what he said 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. You have to realize that business is so different than politics. No, not really. Business is politics. There is politics in business, particularly when you are moving at the upper echelons of it, at the high crust of it. And the fact that he gave more money to progressive causes, to Fabian socialist agendas and Fabian socialist-driven politicians, and the stuff that he said, because he had been contemplating presidential runs going all the way back to 2000, we know what he said, and we know what his positions were. And by the way, William F. Buckley had actually written back in 2000, shortly before his death, that Trump is a narcissist. Mm-hmm. And that Trump would try and say that he was a good businessman, but if you actually looked at the proper, dignified running of the United States of America, you would find that while business may be important in some aspects, it really didn't play that significant of a role in the true and honest, proper running of the United States. It didn't end the Cold War. It didn't bring about the protections of our rights and liberties. And William F. Buckley was dead on with that. He said that Trump had no policy, that he would be able to dupe people, for lack of a better term, just trying to say whatever he could to get votes. My God, that's practically prophetic. That is what we are facing right now in this 2016 presidential election cycle. And yes, while there is booing that's going on at the DNC that started today in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and while it may even be greater than what we saw on the RNC stage, do not think that this is going to bring conservative voters over. Because when they sit there and they say you can't do anything of his past, you can't use any of his past statements, which, by the way, because he has no voting record, that's what we have to go on, then how can we really compare him to our personal values? How can we tell whether or not he is qualified to be president? Well, he's put it out in his own books. He's put it out. He wrote a book about running for president. Guess what? None of the platforms or policy positions that were in the leaves of that book had anything to do with conservatism, had anything to do with the Constitution, because, as we have so oft times noted on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, he said he's never once read the Constitution from cover to cover because he didn't find any inherent or intrinsic value in doing so.
So, let's see. It's okay for him to say all these things. We can't take him at his word, but yet he expects people to take him at his word when he says he doesn't need the vote of the conservatives. He can win without the conservative vote. How well did that work for John McCain and Mitt Romney and Bob Dole? How well did that work for him? How far did that get Newt Gingrich in his campaign runs? Granted, he dropped out, was never the nominee, but still, even leading up to it, you look at any of the candidates, really, except for maybe Cruz. Well, definitely Cruz, but maybe a couple of other individuals in past campaigns and election cycles. Was it Tom Tancredo?
Who is now on the Trump train.
And see,
Duncan Hunter.
Now on the Trump train. Now, are we starting to see a pattern here?
Yeah.
And I think the pattern was broken. See, those individuals were railroaded much in the same way and by the use of the same logic that Cruz was railroaded. And anybody that says Cruz wasn't railroaded on this, they're full of it. They're absolutely full of it. All the shenanigans, all the trumpery that went on, and yes, folks, trumpery is a real word, and
Flashy,
it's used correctly.
showy, but meaningless.
Yes, all this trumpery that went on, well, it backfired because Cruz is not going the way of Tom Tancredo, the way he was railroaded by the RNC. Same with Duncan D. Hunter, not going by the way that he was railroaded with the RNC. Cruz isn't jumping on board and endorsing the candidate. Instead, he's going to vote his conscience. Tom Tancredo abandoned his principles when he became a Trumpidian.
Mm-hmm.
Duncan Hunter abandoned his principles when he became a Trumpidian. See, any and all individuals who are willfully supporting Donald Trump, you have a reality check that is going to be hitting you in the face. Again, he sees no value, inherent or intrinsic value, in our shared Constitution, which means, since that is where we the people derive our sovereignty from, he sees no value in we the people. But he says he's going to be for the people. He's going to do this and that. It's no different than what FDR in the New Deal was, giving people all this free stuff. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then you have LBJ with the Great Society, all this stuff coming in. We're going to give people what they want. We're going to let them live fat, free, and happy. That way they're dependent in voting Democrat or however we want them to vote for the next 200 years.
And, it really starts to glare when you try and see that the Republican Party has positioned itself as the party of morality. We've always heard that. Go back to the Fred Foley case and how there was all that hoopla, and the Democrats were just frothing at the mouth to call it all part of the culture of corruption. Remember when Nasty Pelosi got up in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and said, well, this is the end of the culture of corruption. Except they were more corrupt than anything else. But it's that double standard. We see a double standard time and again. Only this time we're seeing it within our own rank and file, and in a way that is so open and obvious and hostile to true constitutional compositionists that it cannot be ignored. And yet, there are those who didn't initially support the mafioso quafioso, who are going out there and saying that, you're wrong to actually try and interpret the Constitution back to its original language. Yet they claim to be originalists. I love this. You have to apply the modern applicable terms and words to it, and that's originalism. You see, this is why we need the term constitutional compositionist, because we need to have a position and a term that cannot be bastardized by these revisionists. Because what they will try and do is say that originalism just means the original intent, but with modern applications applied. That can't work, because as we have so frequently restated on the Wright Flyer, it's based on the natural law tenets, and those tenets, by their nature, are timeless, meaning they're just as applicable today as they were 235 years ago, and as God willing, they will be 235 years from now. This really isn't rocket surgery. You don't need Dr. Ben, I'm a victim, Carson, to figure it out.
How can something be kept in its original form, but yet have modern standards applied to it? That would mean that it's not original. It's been adapted, changed, modified, and albeit the Constitution does give variances within Article 5 of changing the Constitution and ratifying it, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says, well, okay, it's archaic, it's antiquated, so we have to take on a new interpretation from it. I'm sorry, but guess what? The Ninth Amendment strictly prohibits that. So if you want to take something with its original intent, you have to apply it as such. Okay? Yeah. What let's see if we can break it down for the ne'er-do-wells that like to kind of chime in and then leave death threats for us on YouTube, which I find absolutely hilarious. Keep them coming. They make me laugh. I love it. Let's see if we can't give an example of original form or original intent. Telephones. Look at the original intent of the telephone. Okay. Now, granted, technology is adapted to where we can use telephones for just about anything and everything now. Okay. But the original intent of the telephone was to be able to converse with somebody over short or long distances rather than in person. The great invention. Alexander Graham Bell was a genius. But you see, when we have things now with the text messaging, see, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. But if you have original intentions that you adhere to that are rooted in natural law tenets, the road to hell doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because good intentions come about by playing with the intent, by playing and twisting around things and trying to apply extra constitutional meanings to things or different words. This again falls directly into this political correctness crap.
Of course it does.
And
that's the thing. They are working to redefine us. That's where your twin cancerous doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism come in. And that's why these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists have done this. And it all ties into their overarching ultimate agenda, which is the complete and utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people. They don't want us to be a constitutionally endowed representative republic. They want us to grovel at this new age feudal society, this caste system that is inflexible and unmovable that they've been working on for the past 150 years. It's why Alexis de Tocqueville said, and I know that I've mentioned this before, but it does bear repeating here. That's why he said that anyone who supports any flavor of socialism is actually just a new age feudalist. It's because it ties into this idea of being able to micromanage the facets of our daily lives to such a degree that they control us from cradle to grave. That's what they've been wanting. That's what they're working for. That's what they've been working for all this time. And the fact that we can't see that in Trump, or that there are people who refuse to see that in Trump, it's beyond all belief.
Perfect example of how Trump is trying to micromanage people and create this caste system. Every rally where he had people swear allegiance and loyalty to him, every single rally that he spoke at where he did that, he is instituting that. He is absolutely just cramming it right down the throats of. And the thing is, can we really blame Trump? Place all the blame on him for that? No. We have to place the blame where it equally applies. Those supporters who willfully stuck out their hand, raised their right hand, and repeated after the quaff waffle those syrupy words that they're going to swear allegiance and loyalty to him. I'm sorry, but where in the Constitution does it allow someone to swear allegiance and loyalty to a certain individual?
Article non, section existent, clause 0, right next to the bovine excrement clause.
However, it does prohibit people from doing that, because swearing allegiance or loyalty to any one individual, whether they're a citizen of the United States or not, is invoking a title of nobility, which is strictly prohibited by the Constitution and cannot be done without the consent of Congress. So unless Trump went to Congress and said, well, you know, I built the wall, or I plan on building the wall, I built the tower, I have greatly bigly hair, smally hands, I got this little document, it's not going to be like the pledge where I'm going to rip it up, I'm just going to use it to subjugate and subvert everybody, but I want people to swear allegiance and loyalty to me. Trust me, I promise you, it'll be great. I guarantee it'll work. No, he didn't go to Congress with that. A, probably because he's not smart enough to. B, I think Congress, as defunct and feckless as they are, they would have laughed at him.
And rightfully so.
Yes.
Rightfully so. Because remember, he even came out and said that he would have the Supreme Court investigating Hillary Clinton for email scandals and for Benghazi. As if the Supreme Court is enumerated with the power to investigate. That is not the job of the judiciary, numbnuts. That's not how it works. That's not how any of it works, to quote an old Geico commercial. But this is the problem. The people think he's such a greatly brave, such a wonderful man who's just so great at business that he's going to, I guess through osmosis, make this work at the highest office of the land. Yes, quaffmosis, but it's going to be a quaftastrophe, is what it's really going to be, because it's not in line with our Constitution. It's not in line with the supreme law of the land, which, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, is the Constitution itself, the very thing that he doesn't find any value in. How is he going to be able to rule? How is he going to be able to rule in a fair and efficient fashion that is in line with a constitutionally endowed representative Republican form of government like what we have here in the United States? You see, this is why it's so dangerous. We have the longest contiguous or uninterrupted running constitutional document in the entire course of human events. Stop and think about that for a moment, folks. The longest uninterrupted running constitution in the entire course of human events. And he just wants to blow it up. And the Lion Branch Trumpidians, those that want to apply modern interpretation to the Constitution, they're the ones that are just dancing along with him, picking up the dandruff trail and preparing to destroy this country.
Do you know who's worse than the Lion Branch Trumpidians, those little troglodytic dandruff droolers? You know who's worse than them? You know, the ones that are saying, oh, it's you can't do it. It's this and that. And you have to apply modern rationale to blah blah blah. What's worse than them are the ones who sit there and say, you're always bringing up the Constitution. It doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't mean anything anymore. If it meant something, then we wouldn't have to vote for Trump, because, our founding fathers would have declared us to vote, for someone like Trump, because he could bring us back to what we have to be. How in the blue hell is that even possible?
Our founding fathers would have tarred and feathered Trump.
By the gallon full.
Because he is trying to set up an imperial presidency. Yeah. Now, yes, he got a lot of help with that, with these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime and from the feckless, gutless opposition party, or GOP. That's why we changed the meaning of that acronym away from grand old party, because there's nothing grand about what the Republican Party has been doing to gutless opposition party. And so, yes, our founding fathers would have been very upset. And to those people that sit there and say that we have to vote for somebody like Trump because the Constitution's not working anymore, you want to know who's to blame for that? Look in the frickin' mirror. Look in the mirror. Because the only way the Constitution can protect us, because you have to remember, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a contractual relationship. That means that we, in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, carry the onus of responsibility, the duty, obligation, and responsibility of proactively maintaining and safeguarding our rights. When was the last time a Lion Branch Trumpidian actually went out there and defended the Constitution? If they were there in the military, yes, I applaud that. But then I ask you, because you've taken an oath, you've sworn an oath, how can you, in good conscience, vote for any candidate who sat there and said that they find no inherent or intrinsic value in the supreme law of the land? How can you?
I'll take it a step further. When was the last time any of these Lion Trumpidians actually read the Constitution, or even picked it up, or even bothered to even try and look at it? Even when Trump did mention what was it, the 14th Amendment with regard to the nationality clause of citizens, which he didn't get entirely wrong, but he didn't get it entirely correct either. Why? Because the context in which he was applying it did not apply. He was trying to apply it to illegal aliens, or in his words, the illegal immigrants. We're going to give them to build the wall. And just I've got my special endorsement guy here, Ben Carson. He's going to tell you all about it. See, he didn't even apply it at the true level in the proper context. Because see, the 14th Amendment came about as a direct result of the 13th Amendment still becoming law, but not being followed by the states. Remember the whole Dred Scott issue? That kind of came back around. There was incidents where there was slaves who had been freed, considered to be free individuals, but could not be held accountable for fleeing slavery under federal law because the 13th Amendment took hold, but they were still being tried and punished under state law without due process, without any constitutional rights, because their rights were only recognized at the federal level at that point. So we had to have something that was kind of redundant as a reminder that because of the preamble to the Bill of Rights, any and all amendments that are attached to the Constitution at that point in time or forever here on out carry the full force, weight, and effect of the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. The states needed to be reminded of that. That's why the 14th Amendment came into practice and was ratified. But Trump wanted to apply it to people coming into the country. Wrong. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's because if you are not a citizen of the United States, whether you be natural born or naturalized, the Constitution doesn't apply to you. You see, that's another one of the quote-unquote modern interpretations that they want to foist upon the Constitution. Since when did we give constitutional rights to those who are not American citizens? Does that even make sense when the Constitution itself defines citizenship?
It's very simple. It's called the Constitution of the United States of America.
Not Zimbabwe,
the Constitution,
not Mexico, not Guatemala, not Quaftopia. It's none of those places.
No, it's not the Constitution of the world. Period. It pertains to strictly our sovereign republic and the citizens who therein reside. Period.
But the Lion Branch Trumpidians don't care. We've seen that. We see it over and over again. It always comes back, and I think it was Pat and Stu over there at the Blaze and Glenn Beck's network that came up with, yeah, but Trump. And is it not the perfect rebuttal? Because that's exactly what these Lion Branch Trumpidians do over and over again, repeatedly ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm.
It is nauseating. It's nauseating because they want to sweep under every little flake of dandruff that would be detrimental to that fraud from New York. They want to sit there and say that, well, he can change, but nobody else can. And that's why they say, you can't look at what he said 5 years ago. You can't look at what he said 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or 70 years ago when he came out of his mom's something, to use his language. We see that it's an attempt to create, again, this double standard. That's why we're discussing the double standard as we sit here and speak into these microphones, because the double standard, it's gone beyond the echelons of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, and it's gone into a total political ideology or philosophy or quaffophacy. But I don't support this quaffophacy because it does not align with the Constitution. Again, it goes back to something that Jeremy and I have so frequently repeated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, going back all the way through last year. And that is this: the only litmus test that matters, when you are attempting to determine whether or not a candidate is qualified to wield the reins of political power in this constitutionally endowed representative republic of ours, it's the Constitution itself. That is why we say it is so important to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared Constitution, thereby giving you an understanding of your fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. But we don't see Trump supporting God-given rights. In fact, if you do the one thing that they tell you not to do, to look at the words, deeds, and actions that he's done throughout his adult life, you'll see that he wanted to use eminent domain in a way that is contrary to the Constitution, that he wanted to, strip people of their fundamental and inalienable God-given right to keep and hold property. Now, does that sound like someone that you would want to have in the White House? Does that sound like someone who would abuse the system? Or does it sound like someone who is just a great quaftopian candidate that's going to bring about the quapocalypse for the left?
See, this is why I brought up the 14th Amendment. And we could bring up the Second Amendment. We could bring up any and all amendments of the Constitution, for the most part, or any other part of the Constitution, and apply it to where Trump is creating a double standard. See, it's okay for him to violate the Constitution, to violate people's rights, to make insinuations that he can go out and shoot somebody in the face and still get elected. But nobody else could have said that. If any other candidate, even if Hillary Clinton would have said that, she would have been demonized and ostracized. But no, Trump gets a pass. Why? Well, because he's the coiffinaire. He's a multi-billion-dollar coiffinaire. Why? So because he thinks he's above the law. See, this is why he creates these double standards. If he's so willing, and I'm going to make a correlation here, and I'm going to tell everybody exactly why I did not vote for Mitt Romney. See, when it comes down to voting with an individual, there is one line that I do not allow anybody to cross. If they cross that line, they do not earn my vote. And that is the Second Amendment. And that is why I did not vote for Mitt Romney. Because he, as governor, signed into legislation in Massachusetts 7 anti-Second Amendment pieces of law that violated the rights of the citizens of Massachusetts. And technically violated the rights of everybody here in the United States. Because
it violates privileges and immunities.
Exactly. Now, if he is so willing and capable of doing that while holding a seat of authority as governor of a state, what makes people think he wouldn't do it on a larger scale as president? Same goes for Trump. If he's willing to use his own business dealings to swindle people out of their property with eminent domain, what would stop him from doing that as president, from taking everybody's property, from saying, you know what, I don't like the business you have, your house, it's a Smalley house, I'm jealous of it because it's actually bigger than my Smalley hands, blah, blah, blah. You can't have your house anymore. You can't have your property. If you do anything that is diametrically opposed to what his agenda is, there would be nothing stopping him from using eminent domain to make people's properties, and even in some cases, their livelihoods and their welfare, their way of living, their sole means of providing for their family.
Yeah.
Go away.
Here's the other thing. Let's take this double standard even further. What is one of the things that the conservatives have been fighting for with respect to the social battles that have been occurring, the so-called cultural wars? We've been trying to defend the family. We've been trying to defend the ability of parents to have their right to raise their children as they see fit. That's part of the pursuit of happiness.
Or even their right to have children
and then what they try and do is then say that Cruz is wrong for standing up for protecting his family. So how can you be one that says you're out there to protect a family, that you're going to protect the familial unit, and then say that the way you're going to do that is to support somebody who's already come out and said that he supports the transgender or gender-neutral bathroom stance.
Mhm.
Somebody who's already come out there and said that Ted Cruz was selfish for standing up for his family after he's claimed that his wife had mental problems, leaking that in direct violation of federal law, and attacked her physical appearance, and then claims that Ted Cruz's father was somehow involved with Lee Harvey Oswald. That's another thing, by the way, that this WikiLeaks thing was supposedly finding some truth on. But again, it was only in the Marshall Report and only in pro-Trump media like Breitbart. So we see that, again, there's a double standard. If you're going to defend so-called family values and traditional American values, you can't do it by somebody who doesn't defend them. And then to say that someone who does defend them, who goes up and does a true political act of courage, is somehow selfish. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you.
There's an even bigger double standard when it comes to the family.
Oh, yeah.
And here it is. Abortion and Planned Parenthood. Because, see, now people who actually want to have children, even if it's advised, highly advised against the doctors, individuals still want to have their children, regardless of any deformities or birth defects or mental illness that may come of it. They still want to have their children because they understand the core principles of family values and the family nucleus.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to the Trumpidians. They just sit there and say, yeah, but Trump.
And they turn right around and say, I'm anti-abortion, but then they turn right around and go right after those individual parents. Well, you should think about having an abortion because it would be the humane thing to do for that child. That child's going to suffer. Who the hell are those people to tell anybody else who to have as children or how to raise their families? Keep your damn nose in your own damn business and stop going after people. This is the problem with the lying Trumpidians. They always want to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. This is why people are so angry at them. This is why people want them to just go away, preferably to, I don't know, Cuba, or maybe China, or something else, somewhere else. Get the hell out of our country, because what you are doing is putting yourself above anybody else. You're trying to dictate to people how you want them to live their lives because the quaff waffler told you, well, I support Planned Parenthood to a certain degree because of this and that, blah, blah, yet he waffled on that. He says he's pro-choice, but he's anti-abortion. He's this, he's that. He has no stance. These individuals don't even know what the hell they're talking about anymore, and they're so blinded by this fury and rage that they want to attack people for doing the right thing. Because these individuals understand that, you know what, if it is God's will that that child comes into this earth and is born into this earth, it is by divine intervention that it happens. If that child dies during childbirth, I'm willing to bet that these individuals that are attacking them said, well, you should have an abortion. They would try and file some kind of a nonsensical drivel lawsuit and go after them in family court, try and trump up charges of child abuse.
Well, they can come up with any quaff suit that they want to. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at this double standard, let's take one of the loudest, shrillest, most annoying of the Trump videos. Little orphan Annie, yep, Toto the floozy.
Remember, stopped licking herself and decided to come out to play again?
No,
oh, bummer.
This goes a ways back. Well, she tried to say that everybody hates Cruz. She was mistaking that for herself. But really, what it means is she went out and said that she wouldn't care if Trump was committing abortions on a White House table. She would still vote for him. That is a double standard. That is hypocrisy. That is selling out your values. That shows that she has been a political whore for all this time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? Any other, stud that has its kennel papers that wants to try and parade her around and, breed these double standards with her, well, you know what? She's going to acquiesce to them. And she'll accommodate them, to be sure. I mean, look at how accommodating she was to Bill Maher. And then she turned around with a double standard on that. It's no wonder he's screwed up in the head. But you know what? That's his fault.
Yeah, and none of us should be punished for that. But
Well,
and then there's Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham. I thought Laura Ingraham, the wonderful, great
Ava
radio
Ingraham.
host. Yeah, I thought she was supposed to be about conservatism. I thought she said she was sick and tired of the establishment and the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media trying to select our candidates for us. So then why did she go to the one that the media gave 3 times as much media attention to? Why?
For her own personal gain for media, because I guess her ratings and whatnot were kind of plummeting.
Well, she's at Quoth News now, too.
Yeah. So it was for her own personal gain. So that makes her no different than Trump in the grand scheme of things. Because see, Trump is doing all this for his own personal gain. He doesn't care about the American people, again, because he sees no value in the Constitution. Therefore, he cannot logically see any value in the American people. This ultimate will is a sovereignty. It's impossible. So she's going right along the same line. She's going to jump on the quaff wagon, spray it up with Aquanet, and ride that pony as long as she can before she falls off, because she has her own personal agenda of reinvigorating her social presence.
Well, that's one Pony Express I don't want to see. We need to really get back to a modicum of sanity in this country. And part of the way of doing that is holding people accountable for their double standards. And I have to say something with respect to Mark Levin. Mark Levin has been doing a lot of good reporting with respect to Trump and calling him out, but he did say that he would most likely go out and vote for him. Hey, Mark, when you said never Trump, I want you to take a step back for a moment. What was that first word? First word was never. Now, Mark, where I'm from, never means never.
It's kind of a funny word, really, if you think about it. I mean, not really. It's actually just, 3 letters and 1 syllable longer than the most universally understood word in the human language. No. It's just a more polite and sophisticated way of saying no. Never means never. It doesn't say, well, I'm never Trump, but except for this, and I'll vote for him for that. I'll vote for him. I'll just keep running my mouth.
Never Trumper is not a never Trumper. A fair weather never Trumper is not never Trump. And there's a reason that we hold these positions. And it ties into these double standards that we've been discussing throughout tonight's program. And it goes down to the line. What is it that Trump stands for that's conservative? Please show me something that he has held. And yes, I'm going to actually change the way you do it. Show me where for 30 years he has held a consistent and conservative position.
You can't. You can't. It has never existed. And I want to go back to
that word again.
I want to go back to this word never. I really love dictionaries. They're fascinating pieces of literature. Well, a dictionary is just a compilation of words with definitions and meanings so that people can understand. It's literature, meaning it can be read to be understood. Let's look at the definition in the Oxford English Dictionary of the word never. At no time, on no occasion, not ever. Number 2, not at all. And then it mentions something here, and it just gave me this idea, and it's a perfect analogy of these people who say never Trump, and then all of a sudden now they're not never Trump anymore. So they're never Trump, which means that they are the Lost Boys. And here is what it says here. It says, Never Neverland, imaginary utopian place. How fitting is that? These never...
Well, where is that? Trump Tower?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, if we sprinkle some, coffee dust on us and think happy thoughts, maybe we could find it. Here's the thing. This is what these individuals who were never Trump and now will vote for Trump. They are what I'm going to call never Trumpers, because they never were never Trump. And they belong in Neverland with all the other lost individuals, the lost boys or lost kids.
Or the lost stool pigeons, because that's what they are.
Yeah.
We have to go back to accountability. I know that I keep saying this. I know that that is something that I keep repeating, but really, there is a lot to be said for that. There is a lot to be considered with that. And it goes down the lines of, if we do not hold anything sacred anymore, if we are not consistent, then how can we be true constitutional compositionists? Because the entire purpose and impetus behind this movement is to ensure that our nation remains viable, and it remains this completely integral country that it has always been. And the only way we can do that is to go back to strict adherence to the Constitution and the natural law tenets that form the bedrock foundation of both it and our representative Republican form of government. This really is not difficult. But the Lion Branch Trumpidians have basically genuflexed so much that they've contorted themselves into pretzels that it really is difficult to see where they start and where they end, what it is that they are seeking to achieve.
And what it boils down to, just like in any other profession, in any other walk of life, and anything that anybody does in their lives, personal, business, employment, whatever the case is, leisure, vacationing, when you come across something that seems difficult, it is only as difficult as you make it. See, these never Trumpers, along with the Lion Trumpidians and all the little orphan Annie Yap Totos that are running around, and the Tommy Lahrens, the Ava Ingbrons, and so on and so forth that are out there. See, you're making this difficult on yourselves, because the difficulty resides within your refusal, your neglect to embrace the only thing that can be a viable solution for the preservation of this republic, the Constitution. You're willing to throw it away because you want to modernize it. You want to create a double standard of saying, well, this is what it means now. It doesn't mean that back then. This is what it means now. And this is all your interpretation, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. I don't want to hear it anymore. You are creating a situation to where you are going to be the ones that ultimately suffer because of this. See, Randy and I are going to be fine. See, those of us that follow the Constitution have reverence, great reverence for the Constitution, have a fluent working understanding, knowledge of it, and believe me, folks, it doesn't end. It is something that you have to be vigilant with. It is never ending. You always have to learn it. It is an undying, never ending task and obligation and duty to yourselves. And when people stop doing that, when they stop thinking in regards to the Constitution and they give up learning it and applying it, they might as well find the largest freeway that is jam-packed, bumper-to-bumper traffic moving at 70 miles an hour, find the biggest speeding semi they can, and make love to the front end of it.
Well, there they could find the gestation cycle of a gnat.
Sure.
By running into the front of that semi.
Sure.
But I want to extenuate this double standard back to the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. Because we see that they sit there and basically praise the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists who are sitting there saying that it's unfair what happened with Hillary Rotten Clinton and that they were not being bad and disrupting. But what do they do with Cruz? When Cruz was basically saying, vote your conscience, they attacked him. But they didn't attack the Sanderistas. They didn't attack the rinse and repeat us for telling the DNC to vote their conscience. Where was Quaff News? Where was Quaff News? What was it doing? Why is it that we are always faced with these double standards that have no place in an open and honest society like that, the United States of America. And it only seems to be the conservatives that really face it. Sure. You're going to sit there and see with the left that they're angry. But you know what nerd-face boy me Sanders, the flying saucer, like sauce as long as everybody else pays for it, was saying? He was begging his followers not to boo, not to heckle, not to be rabble-rousers. Why? Because he said that's what Donald Trump wants. Yeah, it is what Trump wants. It's what Trump did in the RNC.
Mm-hmm.
There's the double standard. There it is. It's okay for Trump to do it. Trump is the one that creates this atmosphere. Trump is the one that accelerates it. Trump is the one that pushes this issue. Well, Trump should take a quaff ride straight to hell, because he doesn't represent me. He doesn't represent Jeremy. He doesn't represent our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward. He doesn't represent, I believe, the vast majority of our cherished listening passengers and audience members.
He doesn't represent Free the Delegates.
He doesn't represent America.
He doesn't represent the ultimate wielders of sovereignty, ultimately. And again, the vast majority that believe that he does, you've been quaff-boozled.
Oh.
Or dandruff-boozled, one or the other. It doesn't matter which.
They've been dandruffized.
They've been dandruffized. You have been had. And again, this goes back to loads of people, numerous individuals that Randy and myself held very high respect and regard for. And it's just like, it's that there's no need for that anymore with them. You just can't do it, because they're pushing this insanity on us. And folks, it is the very definition of insanity. They're doing the same things over and over, attacking us, attacking the Constitution, telling us we have to vote for the lesser of two evils, which again, there is nowhere in hell in this universe where it is written that we have to adhere to one party or the other. But yet they want to push that on us, expecting us to cave, which would be a different result than what we give them now, which is no. Never means never.
And of course, that's the clinical definition of insanity, repeating the same pattern of behavior and conduct over and over again ad nauseum, expecting different results.
And I'm going to add this.
Why do we have to accept that?
We don't. We don't. And people think they do, but we don't.
Yeah, and so it goes down to something even deeper. The deeper thing that we're facing here is that there is this tyranny of false unity. And yes, that is a double standard. Because you see with rinse and repeat is saying that the Democrat delegates need to vote their conscience, but that's bad with Republicans. That's bad with people that really want to stick to the Constitution. And that works against the true natural law tenets that underpin this representative republic of ours. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of us being held to unrealistic standards because they keep saying that Cruz made a mistake. Cruz committed political suicide here. If Cruz committed political suicide at the RNC, then that little conference in Cleveland, Ohio is Jonestown.
Yes.
And Trump is Jim Jones.
Yes.
The cult leader.
Yeah. Now, I have a couple of more things that directly correlate with this. First of all, with regard to these individuals that, again, you're making this difficult on yourselves, okay? And when you make things difficult on yourselves, but you think you don't have to be held accountable or you can't be held accountable for this, again, Trump is the nominee because of you. Because of your insatiable desire of trying to find that never never land or never never Trump land utopian that doesn't exist, and you want to blame us, the Quaftopia, you want to blame us because if Trump doesn't win, it's your guys' fault, and Hillary get elected, blah blah. Bull crap. That's what that is.
It's
Absolute,
projection.
absolute bullcrap. It's projection at its very peak. Okay, so this is what I have to say to you regards to this. My father used to tell my brothers and I this whenever we had to incur disciplinary action. Yes, we got spankings. And you know what? I'm glad my father spanked me when I screwed up. It has actually turned me into the individual that I am today because I understand what it means for self responsibility and self accountability. But I can remember, and I will never forget this, and I never understood what he meant by this until I had to discipline children of my own. And he always said, boys, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. Well, guess what? All of you never Trumpers, all you Trumpledites, lying Trumpidians, and the whole lot of you, what Randy and I are doing by bringing this to the forefront and exposing you for your double standards and your insanity, we don't take any pleasure in this. It hurts us more than it's going to hurt you. Because that is the natural course of things. You could think of this as tough love.
We don't
That's
ever
how that's
like
going
having
to
to go against our fellow citizens.
Ever.
That's not what America's about. And that's the thing. What we see with the advancement of the Lion Branch Trump videos, with this bizarre ascendancy of the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, and vulgarian, who goes by three names, Donald J. Trump, John Barron, and John Miller, is that we've lost a sense of civil discourse. We've lost the ability to discuss things. The age of argument is apparently over because they don't want to have rational thinking. They want to repeat shallow, hollow, empty, meaningless platitudes and to shove them down our throat as if that is somehow acceptable. But I've got news for you. Newsflash. That's unacceptable. That's un-American. Stop it. What in the hell is wrong with you? And you can go out and vote for him if you want to. That's fine. You can do that. We're not going to tell you how to exercise your fundamental and inalienable God-given right to vote. But do not expect us to gleefully go along with the tune of the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives, because we will not do it. We will not abandon our principles. And that's not wicked, that's not evil, that's not wrong. That's what it means to be a quintessential American citizen, a red-blooded American citizen.
Now, I want to speak to that right there, that double standard of voting for the lesser of two evils. And wouldn't you know it, Randy, I have yet another analogy that actually involves a house. I don't know where I come up with these, but it just hit me. See, here's the double standard of voting for lesser of two evils. And I gave an analogy the other night with you have three armed intruders breaking into your house or one armed intruder breaking into your house. Which one would you rather have? Well, the true answer is neither, because now you're put into a position to where you have to do what? Defend yourself and your property and your family and your life and your rights. Now, this kind of goes along with that, but I'm going to put a little bit of a twist onto it. And I'm actually going to deepen this. All the Trump videos, they were all set up to promulgate this lesser of two evils crap, just as the individuals were from the RNC for McCain and for Romney. If you don't vote for McCain and Romney, then it's a vote for Obama. Same thing applies here. But here's the twist. See, the lesser of two evils in this scenario, in this situation, is you have two doors on your house. You're going to bed. You're only allowed to pick one of the two doors that you're going to lock. The other one has to remain unlocked, i.e., your front door or your back door, which would be the equivalent of Hillary Clinton. You get to pick one. Front door Trump, back door Clinton. Which one are you going to lock to make sure that your family stays safe at night? Because at least, hey, you still have some modicum of safety, right? One of your two doors is locked. It's not like you're being asked to keep both doors unlocked. But yes, you are. Because, see, regardless on whichever entrance or exit you invite evil into your home. It doesn't matter if one is locked or not. If they are allowed to gain access at all, then evil is going to come into your home. And what's really happening is it's the false perception that both doors are capable of being locked, or just one of the other doors being capable of being locked. But guess what? Evil is coming to your home, and in all actuality and reality, with those two candidates, neither door are capable of being locked, because here's the funny twist to it. The locks don't work.
And here's another double standard that has just been running rampant in this 2016 presidential election cycle. Remember, they said that Cruz violated his oath, that pledge that he signed? Well, back in March 29th, Trump had gone in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. He said he didn't expect Cruz to abide by that pledge, because he didn't expect to abide by it. He said that he would not support the GOP candidate if it was not him. Now, wait a minute. Why is it that Cruz and the Cruz crew and true constitutional compositionists are attacked as somehow being disloyal? Because we already know that the Lion Branch Trumpidians would have been doing the same damn thing if their candidate, their quaffidate, wasn't standing there as the lead of the gutless opposition party. That is hypocrisy, and we are sick and tired of it. There is no other way to put that other than as sheer unadulterated hypocrisy. And why is it that the Republican Party is now going to become known as the party of hypocrisy?
Oh, but wait, Randy. You know people are going to call us hypocrites.
Of course.
You know they're going to call us hypocrites. And here's the thing. It will be a bald-faced lie, because here's the reason. How can we be hypocritical when we don't care who any individual is that is skirting away from, denying, disparaging, or abandoning their principles rooted in the Constitution? I don't care who anybody is.
It's greater than any man. It's greater than any individual.
Than any of us. Even us as a whole, as a republic, it is still greater than that. Why? Because we have a whole republic of future generations that aren't even thought of yet. And it is greater than them because it is perpetual. It is undying. It is timeless, as you say. What is greater than time? Nothing. Nothing is greater than time. Nothing. Yeah. Period. That's just the way it is.
And our Constitution runs in perpetuity, meaning that it never runs out of time, that it is going to continue.
Absolutely parallel to that.
Yeah.
That it never intersects it. Ever.
Right. And so that shows why it is so important that we foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared Constitution, and thereby our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Because we're supposed to be the watchmen for our rights. We're supposed to be the ones that are protecting, not pretending, it's not Trump, but protecting it for posterity. Because remember that when that young woman went up to Benjamin Franklin shortly after the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention and said, Mr. Franklin, what is it you have given us? And he turned to her and he said, a republic, if you can keep it. Now, what does that mean? If you can keep it, that means that the onus falls on our shoulders in our capacity as the ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing republic of ours. That's our duty, our obligation, and above all, our responsibility to carry out. But under the Lion Branch Trumpidians, we sure as hell aren't doing it. The Lion Branch Trumpidians wouldn't have us do it. They would have us sell out. They would have us bow down and kiss an imperial ring of the hair master. Well, I don't want a hair master. I want my republic.
I want my freedoms and liberties to stay intact and to be preserved. But more so, I want my fellow citizens and their freedoms and liberties to stay intact and be preserved. Because, see, if any one of us forfeit our freedoms and liberties without due process of law, it goes back to the old adage, first they came for the Catholics. I didn't speak up, and they took them all away. Then they came for the Jews and the Jesuits. I didn't speak up, and they took them all away. Then they came for the Christians. I didn't speak up, and they took them all away. Then they came for me, and nobody was there to speak up for me. If we do not adhere to this, if we do not maintain in a virtuous and vigilant manner our shared constitution and our rights, we will not have a republic, because there will be nobody to speak for us individually. When tyranny comes knocking at one's sovereign citizen's door, it is our obligation to stand up and say no. It is our obligation to intervene. Everybody wants to talk about, living in harmony and peace and, protect your fellow citizen. Where's it at? Where's it happening? I don't see it. I don't see it. And I'm not trying to aggrandize us, but I don't see anybody else saying this, putting this out there, trying to empower we the people.
And we the people have to be empowered, because we are the ones that are entrusted with the safety and security of this once thriving and flourishing republic of ours. Nobody else can do that, and our founding fathers wouldn't have even wanted them to. Why? Because if you have somebody like the mafioso Quafioso who sits there and says that he and he alone has the power to fix things, then you are giving it to somebody who has the power to destroy. And remember, he's not saying that it's we, the American people, that will, quote unquote, make America great again. I'm not even going to get into the argument of how America ceased being great, because we never did. And we've already beaten that dead horse with the light stick enough. But if Trump says that it's he and only he that can make America great again, think of just how pompous that really is. Think of how disconnected from reality that really is, because it is not connected with any type of the characteristics that are necessary to be a decent leader of the free world. It's the free world. It's not Trump's world. It's not Trump Tower. I know he'd like to think that it is. I know that that's how he would like to carry it out, but it's not.
Trumperland. And see, here's the thing. This comes full circle all the way back to him not caring about we the people. See, if he thinks he has the power and the authority to do all of this on his own and on his lonesome, then why does he even need people at his rallies swearing allegiance and loyalty to him? Why does he feel that he even needs to have the votes of the American people? If he's that powerful, why does he have to have 1,237 delegates at a convention in order to secure the nomination?
Why doesn't he just wave a magic strand of hair and make it so?
Because he can't. Because he is not what he allows people to believe him to be. He is not a messianic figure.
He's not even a quafionic figure. He's a dunderhead.
The Cheeto Jesus. The Cheeto Jesus.
He's a cheap Jesus. That's great. But it's not good for the country. It's not going to propel us to the heights that we need to go to unchain and unshackle the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people, because that duty, that obligation, and above all, that responsibility is ours and ours alone. It's why we have so oft times taken offense to when he tried to say that everything's negotiable. No, Mr. Trump, you freak. Not everything is negotiable. It's not like how you try and negotiate with yard workers to come and mow your hair. It doesn't work that way. What it comes down to is that we are endowed by our Creator, the God of nature, with fundamental and inalienable rights. That goes all the way back 240 years ago to the Declaration of Independence. Those are self-evident truths. Self-evident truths that cannot be swept under the rug. Now, while Pepe is up there mowing your hair, maybe, just maybe, you could pay attention for a moment Trump, and realize you have not been endowed with the authority to say what makes America great. You have not been endowed with the authority to determine what is in America's best interest, and you do not even fully understand how that would work. And by the way, Trump, there is no Article 12 in the Constitution. I know that's a bit too bigly for you, but there is no Article 12 in the Constitution. I'm sorry. Pull the crown out of your ear, pull it all out of your mouth, because it's not there.
Has he been talking to Lois Lerner? You remember Lois Lerner?
Oh, yeah.
The Constitution says the right to life, liberty, and health care.
Yeah, well, he said that the three most important aspects of the government, the federal government, is to provide health care, housing, and education, which that's not in the Constitution at all.
No.
And you see, that's the double standard. Conservatives would have never tolerated that from anybody else. The Republican Party would have never tolerated that from anybody else, but they tolerate it from Trump. So we must snuff out this double standard. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back. She may have a double standard in the type of alcohol she pours for you, but you can push her out of the plane if she doesn't give you good alcohol.
It's called a double shot, is all it is.
Well, yeah, but she probably spills half of it because I know she's drinking most of it during the flight.
Well, if that happens, you kick her out anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, folks, as always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. As always, I'm joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them either here on our YouTube page, our Google Plus page, or our Facebook page. On top of this, I invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX. There you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, Jeremy's personal Twitter account, the Blogspot account, which lists audio blogs and all sorts of other useful information, and of course the Cafe Press account. Give them a brief account of the Cafe Press account.
Well, briefly, there's a lot of nifty little items on there, apparel, and including, in this brief account, actual briefs for gentlemen and whatnot. And, our flight attendant, well, yeah, she just thinks they're hunky-dory. So, shot glasses, drinking glasses, so on and so forth, a whole lot of other stuff. And,
our first class logo and regular logo, folks.
And, Randy, I've actually been thinking about even making some kind of a t-shirt with some sort of depiction. I don't know, maybe something falling from an airplane could be our flight attendant. We don't know, but something.
Yeah,
that
we'll work on that.
We'll work on some new products for you folks. We'll come up with some images.
As always, folks, thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We'll see you next time. Do take care.